Hello, welcome back. It is week 129 on Out on That Line, and it is good to be back. I'm Jeff with my co-host Alex. As always, Alex, how you doing this week?
It is good to be back, Jeff. It is good to be back indeed. I'm feeling crazier than a rainbow trout in a car wash, and that's a good thing on this here show. Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. So the folks that have missed us, we just want to give a hearty congratulations to friends of the pod, Ashley and Seth, on their nuptials. And what a celebration it was. What a great, fantastic evening. The playlist, wonderful. The food, fantastic. That pizza was spectacular. Just a great evening all around, and worth it missing a week or so of the pod.
I think definitely worth it, especially for the cake alone. Ashley, for those of you who don't know, is an incredible baker. The olive oil lemon cake that had like no actual lemon in it or something. I don't know. She was explaining it to my girlfriend. Women start talking sometimes, and I'm just like, man, women be shopping. Sorry. But no, she made this incredible cake, and we asked her how it was made, and she was like, yeah, it's got olive oil in it. And I'm like, well, it doesn't taste like that. It was delightful. So yeah, great. Thanks for showing us your nuptials. And it was fun. It was great. So many congratulations to Seth and Ashley.
Yeah, so they've been giving it a test run for a long time now, so I see a long and bright future ahead of them.
Mazel.
Mazel tov. So we have recently been bestowed another fantastic Rolling Stone top whatever list of whatever certain instrument or vocal ability. This time it's the top 250 guitar players of all time, and there are some notable. I don't want to say notable omissions. I'd say what's more notable is where the people that are on the list are ranked on that list. And you had a particular one that you wanted to talk about. And he's ranked top 50, which is not too bad. But tell me a little bit about why you're mad.
Well, I'm not. I potentially misrepresented my position. I'm not as mad about where Zappa ranks. I would argue he's at 46. I would argue that you could go higher with him. Absolutely, especially
Yes.
on the strength of being self-taught. That's pretty for him to be self-taught and to get as good as he was. That kind of merits a little more consideration than 46. But there again, it's the question we always ask, well, what's their criteria? What are they judging this on? The prolificacy, the group that you're involved in, personality, technical ability, did you pioneer something? Did you carry the torch for something? Like what is their criteria for like what makes an all-time
Mhm.
guitarist? So I have to debate you on Zappa being 46. What I don't have to debate you on, and bless her heart, she's a friend of the show. It doesn't make me feel good to say this, but why in the fuck is St. Vincent at number 26?
So that's where your points about kind of what their criteria is really come into play. So really what here's puppy of the pod Willie deciding to make a guest appearance for the
Willie,
first time, making his debut on the internet.
look at him
Hello,
go.
hello,
Little
Willie.
butthole.
So with St. Vincent, I think what it is kind of there's the cool factor because she definitely is that. She is a great guitar player. Like I don't think there's any debating that all of the people on this list have an ability to play guitar like pretty well. I think what really matters here at the end of the day, I think for where they get ranked is what their kind of impact is. So that cultural impact that you're talking about. I think ranking still St. Vincent at 26, whatever criteria you're looking at compared to someone like Frank Zappa. And I think also where Frank Zappa might be getting hurt is I think people are much more familiar with the personality and persona of Frank Zappa more than they are the music of Frank Zappa, at least at this point in time. A lot of people look back on Frank Zappa and I feel like you're going to hear, oh, the guy that was at the PMRC hearings more than you're going to hear Joe's Garage. And I think that's that's the difference, is you're going to start to see that more and more, I think, because I think his contributions were bigger than the music that he made, as far as kind of his just absolute reluctance to adhere to any sort of like social structure or standard or construct or anything that would constrain him to being less than he wanted to be. I think that's him being ranked at 46 is criminal. I think he easily, if you're going to use criteria of like cultural impact, like kind of what they did for the genre, whether they really changed things. And he was like technically excellent at guitar and just arranging in general. And I think that also hurts him, is because he was not only just a guitar player. He really just had his hands on everything. It might have been other people playing the instruments, but they were doing what Frank Zappa wanted. It really is pretty remarkable. Like, thinking about, there's 45 other people that they think had more of an impact on guitar than he did. But it's Rolling Stone. And they ranked Joni Mitchell in the top 10 on
Yeah,
this list.
she's number 10. And the thing is, I think no, I'm not a guitar player. I can't sit there and approach this from that vantage point.
Mm-hmm.
But what you know, you know. And so I think there's an argument to be made for Joni Mitchell being that high, potentially. What there is no argument for is, you want to talk about another, if we're looking at all the criteria,
Mm-hmm.
social impact, starting a scene, self-taught, where their technical proficiency came in, how popular they became, the sheer output. Love him or hate him, Jerry Garcia is ranked below St. Vincent.
Yeah, that's a great point.
That, to me, nobody was bigger than the fucking Dead when the Dead were at their biggest. They continue everywhere I go. It drives girlfriend of the pod nuts. We'll be driving behind a car and you'll see the fucking lightning bolt skull logo.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll be like, Jesus, it's everywhere.
Oh,
Or the
and
dancing gummy bears.
Maine is big time Dead country. Like, big
Maine is
time.
Dead country.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's
Mm-hmm.
weird. So I look at that and I'm like, again, I want to know. And so on this list, Jerry Garcia's 34. Old slow hand himself, Eric Clapton, is 35. I can't stand the fucking guy, so it's not like, oh my God, I on a moral level, I need him to be higher. But I think Eric Clapton might be a better guitar player than St. Vincent. But this should tell you everything you need to know. I'm looking at this entry for Clapton at 35, and let's get this out of the way. Like, if you go back in the show, you know that Jeff and I agree with what's being said in principle, but this gives too much of a window into the thought process for me to take the list seriously. So we'll read the Eric Clapton blurb. Since starting his career on the British blues rock scene during the 60s, Clapton had a unique gift for melody that made his solos just as catchy as the songs they adorned. He was always a diligent student of the blues, from Robert Johnson and Muddy Waters to Albert King and Otis Rush, and even cut an album of mostly pre-electric repertoire with Wynton Marsalis. But his most memorable recordings were born of real-life tragedy, from Layla, inspired by stealing the wife of his best friend, Patty Boyd George Harrison, to Tears in Heaven, a lament for the infant son who fell to his death from an apartment window. These days, nobody really considers Clapton God. His COVID comments clearly rule out any chance of being all-knowing. But that doesn't stop guitarists from worshiping his playing. Which makes me immediately wonder, did you ding him because he's a dingbat? Did you knock him further down the list because he's anti-vax? Now, again, keep in mind, Jeff and I are not anti-vax. I mean, I don't want to speak for you. Maybe your position has changed since we last talked about it, Jeff. But that, if we're going out on a limb and assuming that had something to do with the ranking process, it shouldn't. It should literally just be like, as simple as, how good are you at guitar? That's the only factor you should be listening to. And can you distinguish that enough to do 250 motherfuckers? I look at the Rolling Stone, I think now knows that their bread and butter is in trolling you with these fucking things. Yes. And that's the only use that they have.
Yeah. I mean, just like a couple more examples about like where people are ranked. So David Gilmour is, where is he? 28. Ranked at 25 is, at 26 is St. Vincent, and 25 is John Frusciante. from the fucking Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yuck.
James Hetfield and Kirk Hammett are on the list together at number 23. That I could see because that's, I mean, I love Metallica. Albert King at 22. Okay, for folks that don't know who Albert King is, he's the one that kind of taught Stevie Ray Vaughan at number 20. Stevie Ray Vaughan at number 20. That's the one I want to talk about. How do you possibly have Stevie Ray Vaughan at number 20? You want to talk about somebody that just, when you think of a guitar player, he's like got to be one of the ones that comes top of the list. I mean, just known for the instrument. There's a lot of these people that are known for being in a band. You know, they were also a great guitar player, but they're more known for their like the songwriting and the musical output. Stevie Ray Vaughan is known strictly for how goddamn good he was at playing guitar. The other one, Prince, coming in at 14, I think. Is that, yeah, Prince at 14. The people that beat Prince, Tony Iommi, okay. Jimmy Nolan, probably just early on, like Pioneer. Carlos Santana, okay. Dwayne Allman, okay. Joni Mitchell at number 9. And
She's not better than Prince. Sorry, dude.
no, I mean, Jeff Beck at number 5. Like, if you're going to bump Clapton way down the list, I feel like Jeff Beck is certainly better than him, but should he stay at number 5 if you're just kind of not giving any credence to that anymore, like that style of music? Eddie Van Halen, number 4. That might be a little high. Jimmy Page, number 3. Definitely a little too high. Chuck Berry, number 2, and Jimi Hendrix, number 1. So it's like there's like Prince at 14 is good, but I feel like what he did as a guitar player should get a lot more recognition than that. You know, I think, like, I love the Allman Brothers, but do I think Dwayne Allman is a better guitar player than Prince? Absolutely not. You know, I think Prince would play circles around him with whatever style of music they wanted to do. But it's just, that's where these lists, like, they're just meant to troll you. It's like some spots, they're just like, it's a tip of the hat that they're like, yeah, you deserve to be there because you're a pioneer. Maybe you're not like more technically skilled than other people. But there's a lot of these that, you know, they just put them in there because they're like, oh, we got to pick somebody cool. You know, we got to pick somebody that's going to be a little controversial in these spots. You know, and I think it's just, it's hard to take these seriously, but it's always like so easy to talk about them. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it's always easy to talk about other people's ignorance. It's one of the most fun things in the world to talk about. No, I agree. It feels pretty arbitrary, and it feels like the whole purpose of it is to just kind of engender discussions like this, which is good business for them, good business for us.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also very interesting to look at these things and through the lens of the demographic shift. Like, St. Vincent might be one of the most contemporary, if not the most contemporary act on this thing, and she's older than me.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it raises questions about Rolling Stone's readership, you know? Who's really their base now? Because I guarantee they haven't heard, like, you know, you give it to some Zoomer.
Yeah.
Sorry to be that guy. I try not to sell them short, but the rules are the rules, the facts are the facts. If you hand this magazine to one off the street, if I take one to work where I work with young artists,
Mm-hmm.
are they going to thumb through that and go, yeah, I recognized more than half of these? No. They're going to say,
No.
he never did the soundtrack for an anime.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard his work on. I don't know who Jeff Beck is. Which show on Crunchyroll did he come up with? They love it. He's a lot of anime at school, but I digress. I think it's an interesting struggle between who's clearly reading this magazine and what they want to read, and how they're being trolled by the staff at
Mm-hmm.
Rolling Stone.
Yeah, and they just do such a good job at putting some head scratchers in there that makes you, there's enough in there that you can take seriously. You know, there's enough spots that make sense that you take it seriously, and then you get those one or two in the top 50 that you're just like, how is this one here and these other people are way behind? It just doesn't make any sense, and it's not supposed to, other than to make us have conversations exactly like this.
Bless their hearts, because
Yes.
conversations like this are the lifeblood of the Out on That Line music podcast, which lives in a very special little pocket of the internet. You can you can tiptoe through an enchanted forest of bullshit, Mr. Beast, Jeffree Star. I don't know if any of these people are still alive. These are 3-year-old references potentially. I don't know. Is Meat Canyon still making cartoons? You tell me. But I'll tell you who's still working. I tell you who the two hardest working men in the music criticism industry are. You're looking at them. They're talking to you right now. They're doing the thing. We did a thing, as people like to say. Uh-oh, we sat in gum, and you can learn all about it at youtube.com/C/out on that line. That's right, folks. We're never going to stop. We're never going to stop doing the show. We're never going to stop pitching the show. We're never going to stop losing our minds in real time, because it's your greatest entertainment value. And there's precious little else to look. Donald Trump is going to be the president again. Let's just get that out of the way. It's going to happen. I don't want it to happen. I know Jeff doesn't, unless something's changed since the last time we spoke, Jeff. I know most of you don't want it to happen, but it's probably going to. It's best we brace ourselves. We find activities and hobbies and love and fulfillment where we can. And I think for you, what that is subscribing to youtube.com/C/out on that line and leaving us love in the comments, turning your notifications on so you never miss a video, and throw it a likey loo while you're there. Why not? We're just having fun here at youtube.com/C/out on that line.
That was a really good segue. The
Thank
way
you.
you slid into that one, it was you were into it before I even knew what was going on. That's how you know they're good.
That's when you know now I'm working.
Well, what do you say we get to this Turnpike Troubadours album named A Cat in the Rain? So Turnpike Troubadours, we've never done a full album by them. Pretty confident saying that. Have talked about them, pretty often when we talk about our country albums. And this album is a country album. Like if you are looking for a modern day version of that kind of like 90s kind of outlaw country, this is the stuff that you're looking for. So that's kind of what the Turnpike Troubadours are known for. They are a country band, not just a country singer. And when they get to cooking, unless you're ready for the heat, you better get out of the kitchen, because these guys can cook. How much familiarity did you have with Turnpike Troubadours?
I think it begins and ends with the Bird Hunters. You played
Mhm.
that for us many, many moons ago when I had moved back from Texas. You were visiting from Texas over a holiday, and I remember Reno was there. All the stars were there. Reno and Tanner and me and Sweet Mitch. And we were going back and forth. And to time capsule this for you, one of us said, "Hey, have you heard that new song from Casey Musgraves, High Horse?" So that's to backdate it a little bit for
Yeah.
you. And I remember when it was your turn, your pick was Turnpike Troubadours, and that was pretty much Bird Hunters was pretty much where it started and ends
Mhm.
with me, for no other reason than there's just so much that comes before something like that. I'm constantly being inundated with new music,
Mhm.
particularly in country and Americana. And I this is not a dig, but Tanner and Brandon, friends of the show, we have a little group chat called the Modern Americana Appreciation Society.
Of course.
A lot of bits flying around in that, a lot of music. Um, So I think it's just Turnpike Troubadours were just a victim of so much other stuff going on. So I was very excited to do this when you brought it up, because I'm like, this will really kind of make or break. And it was a make for me. I
Mhm.
think this is really good.
Mhm.
I don't have necessarily like over the top effusive praise for it, for no other reason than it's just bread and butter, right down the middle, country music straight out of Oklahoma.
Mhm. Yeah, that's to me, if the only song that you're gonna know by the Turnpike Troubadours is the Bird Hunters, I'm sure many diehard Turnpike fans will tell you that one's one of the ones that's okay to know. That's still one of my favorite country songs of all time. It's just fantastic. The way that like beat drops in, and it's just literally on a fiddle, is one of the coolest moments in music for me. Is just like kind of how hard that hits when they're not even using it. There's no distortion, there's no, it's just a regular old country band. Just really really good stuff. That whole their whole self-titled album that song is from, is really 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 good. There's a song called The Mercury that's one of the most like country rockinest songs you ever heard in your life. Like, think like Blackberry Smoke, like shaking hands with the Holy Ghost kind of thing. Just fantastic. This album, there was not a whole lot of, there was like kind of raving like country bar party songs. This was dimly lit backwoods kind of dive bar sort of songs, and I really really enjoyed that from them. There were, I think, just like you said, this is not going to be, I think, ranking on, the top of the line country album lists of all time, or of this kind of generation. But this is a solid entry in their catalog, because this album has a few standout songs. The Rut for me is one of them. That there's a few songs that are great enough that it elevates it above something that you'd just like not really care to listen to again. Everything else is good enough to act as a filler between those like kind of three, maybe four, like really, really bright spots on this album song wise. Um, it was not a slog, even for it being a lot of slower songs and a lot of more kind of heartfelt, some love songs in there. It didn't feel long. So it was only 40 minutes. So it was a nice compact album too. And that always helps. So you don't have to have the strongest, every single song is great if the album is not a slog. You don't have to have, like, think of the Ballad of Dude and Juanita. Like, it's tough to find any one of those songs to pick out and listen to. And it's clearly not the type or genre of music that I'm ever going to like really go and seek out listening to. But you put that in a nice, like, compact little package like they did, and it makes it so easy to digest that it doesn't matter if there's slower songs. Like, it's not lasting long enough that you're getting antsy, and I think they really time it perfectly with kind of where they pick it up a bit. Especially with the lyrics on this are very straightforward. I don't think there's anything, it's not like you're looking at an Escher painting when it comes to unpacking like what's going on with the lyrics here. But there are some really really good ones because they're so just earnest. It's that authenticity that we always talk about. They clearly have it in spades. They always have. And they don't write about things that they don't relate to. So it's as they've gotten more and more famous, and for an example, like, try to get a ticket to one of their shows here in Texas, like, good good luck. It's nearly impossible to see them live here because they hardly ever tour, and when they do, it is a packed house to the rafters, basically. um, because they keep putting out music that's this good. Like, imagine being in a bar and the bar band is playing songs like this.
Mm.
I mean, that to me is where this music is best. And I feel like that's where Turnpike Troubadours are best as well, as their live shows. Look them up on YouTube. You'll find them on the same places out on that line. So yeah, you like that?
Oh, oh.
So, like, just check out their live shows, because you're going to find that as good as these songs are on the album, and like they're well mixed and they have just enough of that kind of rough edge, like Deer Tick tends to do, where it just keeps it interesting, because these guys are just having a good time. They're good songwriters. They know they're talented, and they're just going to kind of feed you some good classic down home Oklahoma country rock.
I love it. I want to swallow it down with some peach
Mm-hmm.
moonshine and a side of cheesy grits, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no, and it's interesting too. The thing that I particularly zeroed in on when you were talking is the idea of these songs. It's not like, look, they're not complicated to unpack. And I love that because you can tell when a group goes in with an onus to like I'm going to do something great. I'm going to be double great for both of us, Dewey. Like, you can tell when someone goes in with that mentality versus someone that's just happy to be there and grateful to ply their trade. And from the little bit of research I was able to do, I can't even call it research necessarily, but I guess their lead singer had some troubles with the old grandpa's cough medicine for a while, got himself clean. And this album is kind of a redemptive product of that. And it reads like someone who's just happy to be there doing the thing. It comes through in the instrumentation. It's clean as all fuck. The
Mhm.
guitar work on this is super clean. The vocals are super clean. I think it's like mixed perfectly. It's really, really tightly produced. Nothing is out of whack. I've become like keenly aware when I'm like, ooh, the vocals are too forward in the mix. It sounds like they were in completely different continents when they recorded this. You get a real sense of the craftsmanship of taking their time, of making songs that are joyful and revelatory and grateful for the fact that they still get to do this, because it looked uncertain in 2019, again from the reading I did, where they took an indefinite hiatus and then come back with this. This is a great way to reintroduce yourself to an audience you didn't have before. So for
Mhm.
me, kind of treating it like the first Turnpike Troubadours album, truthfully, it was for me, and it was a hell of a bang. It makes me want to go back and
Mhm.
check out the rest of the catalog, because this was clearly born out of passion and a need to create, not a need to be relevant.
Mhm. Yes, and I would just highly recommend their self-titled album. The
Okay.
one with the cool, like, green and kinda silver design on it. It kicks off with the Bird Hunters. It's like number 1 song on it, and it goes from there, and it's got so many good songs. I think overall that one's a little bit better of an album than this is, but this was for like, if you just want something that's just a solid, good country album, just straight ahead, this is fantastic. And I think what gets lost here is, I'm glad you brought up that they went on hiatus in 2019, because at that point they'd already had a pretty lengthy career. They'd been making albums. I think they had come out with 3 or 4 albums at that point. So where we have our Sturgill Simpson and our Tyler Childers and Casey Musgraves and all these artists that we love these days, Turnpike Troubadours, Drive By Truckers, the Steel Drivers, bands like that were doing it beforehand and really carrying the torch for that. You can call them outlaw country, I guess, but really carrying the torch for like the real country sort of bands. Because through all that time you had your Tim McGraws, you had your Luke Bryans at that point. You had all these people that are selling out these big stadiums doing that, their version of bro country basically. Um, and then you always had these bands like the Turnpike Troubadours, like the Drive By Truckers, these bands that really were just trying to be like really good bar bands, like just a band you'd want to go and see on a Friday night, after you spend a week at work and just having a good time. And that's exactly what they've always been. I'm so glad to see that they got back to that with this album after all that time. And I think there's a lot of country music today owes a debt to, not just specifically the Turnpike Troubadours, but all of those groups that really did that from the mid 2000s through like the 20 teens until we had the pleasure of getting Coulter Wall and Sturgill Simpson and Tyler Childers and Margot Price and Casey Musgraves and all these people that have really really picked up the torch and ran with it and gone places with country that who knew that they could do that. Like Can I Take My Hounds to Heaven by Tyler Childers is one of the more like innovative kind of country albums that you're going to hear, and let alone what Sturgill Simpson has been doing for years now. It's just, we're at a great point because bands like Turnpike kind of carried that torch and like kept those embers going for all those years. So to still make an album of this quality at this point in their careers, here we're sitting them calling them old, like they're the Rolling Stones or something like that. But it's just like it's really really good to see. This one's absolutely a buy it for me.
Yeah, and I really, again, keyed in on when you're talking about like a bar band. I will say, and it's easy for me to say because I never even sniffed a level of success with it, but having been in a 90s cover band, I can tell you, in a lifetime where I've done opera, where I've done musical theater, where I've been in a band or two, playing in Laserdad, the 90s cover band in Central Vermont at Gusto's, middle of nowhere, nothing shit heap gin mill. No disrespect, we had some of the time of our lives there.
Yes.
Um, but what the hell is Gusto's compared to TD Garden or
Mhm.
Madison Square Garden? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And yet, that sweaty summer night, and you were there. It was homecoming days. You were there. You
Mhm.
and wife of the pod were there. And I just remember it was just this packed, shitty little dive bar, and we had them eating out of the palm of our hand, and that was what it was all about. Go and cry to change shirts at the middle of set break because I was soaked. I soaked myself down to my socks. And that's what it's about. It's because you love it and it's fun and you want to share it with people. So this like I don't want to accuse Zach Bryan of this because I have no evidence to suggest that this is who he is, but it would be easy for him at the level to which he's been elevated and the level at which people hold him for him to start drinking that juice and being like,
Mhm.
yeah, being a mega star is appealing. I think there's, as much as we hate to say like authenticity and purity, there really is a real love of the game that comes through with people like Turnpike Troubadours.
Mhm.
Again, in my incredibly limited experience with them, just off of this album, I got that sense of we would be proud to play at the Roadhouse in the middle of nowhere and just give these ham and eggers who got off their, 40-hour a
Mhm.
week shift at the fucking sawmill to have fun, to dance with their sweetie and drink a couple beers and listen to us
Mhm.
and have fun and wake up the next morning and talk about how good we were. Um, to me, that's still kind of a lost art is getting away from the celebrity because the industry is going to do everything it can to package you and
Mhm.
categorize you and market you. And I think something like this speaks for itself because it speaks from the heart. So for me, this is also a buy it.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. It's always nice to come back after a little break with something that we can get excited about. I've
Yeah.
been ripping this album like a lot because we were supposed to do this one like 2 weeks ago. So
Yeah.
I was getting pretty excited to talk about it. I'm gonna keep listening to it. Like I've always really liked the Turnpike Troubadours. They are really, really fantastic. I think as you get into them more, I think you're gonna find out why they're such a I don't want to say cult band because they are like when they play shows like they sell them out. And they might not do like TD Garden or that size, but I'll bet you if they wanted to, they probably could sell like one time, they could probably sell something like that out. They've got enough fans, they've got enough music at this point that and they just rock. I mean, they can play the slow, heartfelt songs. They're very, 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 very good at writing those songs. But they're just when they get to cooking, they are truly, truly special.
Love it. I can't wait to
Yeah.
discover some more.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything else this week that you wanted to get in before we get on out?
But Jeff, I to quote Costanza, that's it for me.
All right then. Well, until next time.